Dear ones, I'm happy to announce that we have completed a book on life-serving boundaries. I'm feeling inspired and excited to share this with you and to share the gifts of so many collaborators that came forth to create this book. And my hope is that as we become ever more clear about what's life-serving and have a clear no with each other regarding what's not life-serving, and have a very clear yes regarding what is life-serving, that we will begin to have a sense of fully being ourselves, authentically from our hearts, while fully being in relationship with others and compassion and connection, and enter into a synergistic relationship in community and in care and lovingness. So I hope you'll be inspired to take a look at our book and and perhaps receive the gifts that we're offering if it's right for you at this time. Thank you for listening.
Welcome to Relationships as Spiritual Practice, Bridging the Secular and Spiritual, with your host, Alia Lowe Chardet, founder of Mindful Compassionate Dialogue and the Wise Heart Community.
Hello, thank you for being with me today. Today we're diving in around this topic of healing from betrayal. Big word, betrayal. I want to jump in around the definition of betrayal, offer some empathy for the experience that we're calling betrayal. And then I want to touch on anger, anger's role in this, mourning, and finding your power. Okay. So what's your definition of betrayal? I think this is an important question to ask yourself. Words like betrayal just really pack a punch, right? Just the word itself invokes so much, and it's been used so dramatically because it's a big deal. It's a painful event. When we're saying we've been betrayed, we're usually talking about a very significant experience. Yeah. So take a moment. What does this actually mean for you, this word? Yeah, someone's betrayed your trust. What does that mean? Are you breaking it down? Okay, I'll offer a few things. I wanted to give you a moment to kind of sink into the topic with me. Betraying your trust, we could say simply means you expected one thing to happen and it didn't. It could be as simple as that. It's when you start to name those things that it gets more intense, right? You expected honesty and somebody actively told you something that wasn't true. It's the biggest form of, probably the most common form of betrayal. Another one is you expected care and the person wasn't there to care for you. Maybe in a medical emergency or as you were grieving the death of a loved one. What else? comes into defining betrayal for you? Maybe there is in the word an assignment of willfully hurting another. So I think often when the word betrayal is used, there is a thought there that you did it even though you knew it would hurt me. This thought that someone chose to hurt you out of their own selfish interests. Ouch, so painful, right? So any or all of those things might be true in an instance of betrayal that occurred in your life that you're thinking of. So let's go ahead and just offer some general empathy for an experience of betrayal. Identify the feelings and needs most specifically. So hurt is probably the most obvious feeling with betrayal, an intense sense of pain, often spikes of intense anger, along with moments of grieving. Yeah. What else? Anguish, fear might be present. Shame might come up eventually. Confusion is often present, right? Disorientation, shock is present often. What kind of needs? Trust, need for trust, need for care, predictability, information and clarity to help with the confusion. Love. Honesty, integrity. There's something else you would add in there. I'm sure there is. Respect, maybe, huh? Respect, honor. Yeah. So when you're describing something as a betrayal, there's probably a long list of feelings and needs present. So it's really important to drop in with that, to receive empathy. Of that long list, I want to talk a little bit about anger. So anger has a specific purpose to protect you. You probably know, right? It's coming up from this survival part of you. And it's sounding an alarm. Hey, your needs are not met, or your needs might not be met in this situation. Alarm, alarm. Check in, notice, notice. Anger has a mobilizing action. It's still a contracted state because it's not a flow state, right? It's a tense state of mobilizing energy with a very narrow beam. And that narrow beam just wants to protect you. So often anger in the beginning stages of boundary setting with someone who has not met your needs in what lives as a very big way for you, anger can help you set boundaries, helps you find that solidness of saying, no, this experience is not something I want in my life. And so in that way, we don't want to rush getting out of anger. And I wouldn't say this to any old person on the planet, because some folks are really addicted to anger and it's so habitual, right? On the other hand, I'm guessing if you're listening, you might have a tendency to move quickly to compassion, forgiveness, trying to rationalize and figure the situation out. You might have a judgment that anger is bad. And so if you rush that protective response, what I have seen happen is that that stage never gets to complete, really. And so as you try to heal from betrayal, anger comes in and interrupts your healing process, and it can keep you in a loop there for a very long time. So part of being with anger, it's not really an amount of time, but that's just a colloquial way to say it, is that anger is saying, find the validity of your own needs. Find yourself worthy of honor and respect. When someone does something that you're calling betrayal, it can shake your notion that you are worthy of respect and honor. So it's really important to reestablish that. And it might mean finding people who support you, who can do that with you in a clear way without also being caught in the story of the event. So that's another way where you might block your own process. If you feel anger and you let your mind go to the story of the betrayal, and you're in this thinking, how could he have done that? And he this and he that, or she, whoever it is, right? How could they? How could they? How could they? And judging them, insulting them. It's really a distraction for what will be helpful to you. Anger is asking you to look at your own needs and protect them. It's not asking you to try and control that other person. Unfortunately, the way anger is modeled in most places here on planet Earth, anger gets associated with judging others instead of cueing us to take care of our needs, which is its real purpose. So if you have a helper, a support, then in our ideal world, that support person is interrupting you telling the story of the betrayal again after you've told it once or maybe 2 or 3 times. And maybe that's enough. And saying, yeah, you're so angry because there's something you really want to be cared for in you. Yes, I want to be respected. I want to be able to trust. I want to know I'm loved. I want to know I have friendships that are honest. I thought it was a friendship, and friendships are supposed to be honest. It's really hard there because in this example of betrayal of a friendship, again, friendship is attached to that person in the betrayal, in the scene that you're calling the betrayal. And so there's kind of an unsticking there of the need and the strategy. I have a need for friendship, and your definition of friendship includes honesty, right? And as you unstick the person from the need, And you can just say, yes, friendship is important to me. Honesty is important to me. Trust is important to me. Communication, clarity. Start to feel, this is where I want to live my life. I want to protect this in my life. I want my relationships to live from this as well. I want the people that I'm sharing my heart with to hold these values dear and to have capacity to act on them. This is what anger wants you to do. And it wants you to stand in that and say to yourself, and I am worthy of being cared for with regards to these needs. I am worthy. So you're coming back again and again to experience that. So someone who's helping you, hopefully, is helping you translate anger into that language of needs and feelings. And as you ground yourself in those needs, then you'll hear anger stop talking about the other person and start talking about your boundaries. And that'll be a good sign. You'll hear yourself say, like, behavior like that is not okay with me. You'll hear anger start to say, I will not engage in that way in any of my relationship. You might set a boundary around, I will not reconnect with this person until we have a repair process that cares for the needs alive in this situation, present, relevant to this context, and of course, in your own heart. So let anger help you stand in the energy of your needs and come back to yourself. Because something you're calling betrayal is such a big energetic hit to your system that it will require some care and focus and support for your system to organize back around your heart and around what matters most to you, your universal needs. And so part of that process of landing in the needs, as you steady in that, as you can maintain your focus in that, is contacting the vulnerable feelings underneath. The hurt, the fear, the sadness. So receiving empathy for how painful it is. Often there's literally physical pain in the chest, right? And just allowing yourself to express that pain. It's just being able to say. It can be as simple as just saying, it's so, so painful. It's so, so painful. Sometimes creating a metaphor that represents your pain and communicating your pain via a metaphor can be more effective than just saying the words, it's so painful, because it captures more. And a metaphor for pain be, sometimes people say it was like being hit by a truck. Things like this, right? The example of a metaphor. Careful with your metaphors. You don't want to bring more of those kinds of things into your reality. The important thing is that your metaphor is a present moment expression of something you're experiencing, not so much a reflecting back, naming. Okay, And when you do that present moment expressing, then that energy has a chance to move as you're willing to feel it, name it, and release it. As you move through the hurt, the sadness will start to come, probably be more available then, come up for you. And it can be super important there to name what you perceive as something that you have lost because of this event, right? Or series of events as it is. And being aware that a loss often includes the present moment connection with someone, and a sense of loss can also come from what you thought was true or what you thought was going to happen. It's very real grief. Your thoughts are powerful. And if you envisioned something with someone, and now, because of this behavior you're calling a betrayal, you know it will not happen, that is a loss, right? You had energy in that vision. So naming that and allowing yourself to grieve it. It's vulnerable to be in grief. And so what might happen as you're starting to cry is that the anger pops back up. And that anger, it doesn't come with wisdom. So again, it's just perceiving you to be at risk. Like maybe if you're sad, you'll be in danger. Not such an uncommon belief, right, in the world. So I just want you to notice that, oh yeah, the anger's coming back up. Just feel it as it comes. And the ideal there is to feel it without telling a story about it, without going back into the story. Oh, there comes anger to protect me. Thank you, anger. I accept this situation. I accept that this happened. I accept feeling this loss, and I will maintain my boundaries. So you can kind of reassure anger that a grieving process does not mean abandoning yourself. It's just allowing healing. Healing is that movement of energy. The natural flow of energy resumes. Okay. So just a last piece here then. When you've done this process, when you've mourned, what will help you to continue the healing and not be in a loop in which you go back to the anger and pain again and again is finding your power in this situation. So if you're saying, I've been betrayed, then there's likely a thought in there that you are a victim of at least semi-random actions of someone else, right? It seems to you in that moment that you are a victim of that other person's actions. Victim is a tricky word. We don't want to throw it out because it exists in the world. There are lots of things that are bigger than us that we don't see coming. People, natural disasters, etc. So there's that kind of more practical use of the word. As it is, it's a recognition of harm done without consent. So I want to maintain that. And I want to tease out the nuance of that can be true. And at the same time, you can set a boundary with actions that took place without your consent for the future. And find your own power by knowing anything that you did that increased your vulnerability to what happened. Because anything you can change on your side gives you power to shape the life that you want. I'll give you some examples. I know I'm in tender territory here. So I think the speak that we've heard about that is blame the victim, and there's some like new age, well, you create your own reality, so you created that horrible event for yourself. And there's a lot of blaming and shaming in that. And that's not where I'm going. I don't think that's helpful. I want to talk about things that are very specific. So we're not going into this airy-fairy place where someone can just hear a lot of shame or blame. Okay. So power comes from your power, and your agency comes from recognizing your own strengths and being grounded in them. A willingness to recognize your blind spots and your own reactivity and how it was at play. A capacity to name the chain of events that contributed to the event that you're now calling betrayal. And lastly, articulating what you learned within that event. So really important again that all those other things happen that we named before, the empathy, the care, coming back into the needs, being with the anger and the loss before you do this step. Because if you rush this step, then it's too easy for it to slide into self-criticism. Okay. So with lots of warmth, we're doing this step. With lots of self-compassion, we're doing this step. So a groundedness in your strengths is just good to do anytime. just valuing yourself. It's really a step about valuing yourself. I despite everything that happened in that event, you can say to yourself, I know that I solidly brought these things, and they were a contribution, regardless of what happened. I solidly brought this, whatever it is, right? You solidly brought care. You solidly brought consideration of the other person's needs, perhaps. It might be any number of things. Your commitment, your willingness. Okay. And then you're looking through, let's just say it's one relationship, right? In which you are saying there was a betrayal. You're looking through that relationship over the past years, perhaps. And you're looking for moments of reactivity with that person. What might have you, where might you have been reactive that would have contributed to a sense of fear in the relationship? Fear in communicating. Fear in communicating contributes to dishonesty, for example, right? So if this person attempted to share something with you that was edgy and you were immediately reactive, that we would call a condition, not a cause, but a condition, a supportive condition for dishonesty in the future. And so naming that, my hope is naming that again is not to excuse the other person's behavior. It's not about getting anybody off the hook for what they did that didn't meet your needs. It gives you a place to build capacity. Ah, I see that when they tried to share something with me about something they did that I didn't like, and I was reactive, that wasn't supporting open communication in our relationship. Yeah, is this making sense? So you're looking for that. Or with blind spots, you're looking for places where you so wanted something to be a certain way that you then were willing, you kind of put the blinders on and said, la, 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 I don't see, I don't want to see. I don't want to see that they're lying to someone else. I don't want to see that they did XYZ with this other person, and I'm just telling myself they wouldn't do that with me. Right? Because you don't want that to happen to you. You want what you want. And there's some special thing you want that you're going after despite the warning signs. So those are blind spots, right? Usually those blind spots are connected to tender needs, needs that you don't think you can meet another way. And so you get tight around the one way or the one person meeting that need. And as you name the chain of events leading up to the event you're calling the betrayal, you might look a little wider for what else was happening in that person's world, in my world, what other conditions were negatively contributing to disconnect, being out of sync, out of tune, building up of resentment perhaps, or other forms of disconnect. And as you name those, they can become things you watch for in the future. Right? You might see little places where you're like, oof, more grief. Like, oh, I see this and this happened, and I knew it needed repair. And because I have this getting caught up in work thing that I do, I neglected my relationship with that person. So it's some self-honesty there with lots of warmth and gentleness. And so all of these things that I name relate to the learning going forward, right? Okay. So now knowing these things about yourself and having seen some warning signs in situations or in behaviors, you are a little wiser. You can watch for it next time. Yeah. It also might inspire you to do some very specific healing work, right? Especially around, well, around either the places where you knew you were reactive or you had blind spots. Ah, how will I not have that reactivity and blind spot in the future? That will require healing work, most likely of some form, whatever form is exactly right for you. I hope this has been helpful. I hope that you can hear my care for you if you're facing a betrayal, and that I don't take it lightly, and I don't imagine any of these steps are easy. Yeah. At the same time, forgiveness is one of the single most important things you can do in your life. And so healing from betrayal is a practice of forgiveness. Because at the end of it, the hope is that you can just see that person who you are saying betrayed you as another human being struggling on the path, wanting to be good, wanting to be loved. Well, not wanting to be good, wanting to know their own goodness, wanting to be loved, wanting to live from their heart, and maybe not having the capacity to do that. Certainly not in the moment that they did what they did with you, right? But as long as you hold that other person in an enemy image as a bad person, as dishonest person, irresponsible person, whatever the judgment is, weak, flaky, unevolved, right? You might have very advanced ways of saying it, disturbed, dissociated. However you say your judgment, it's still a judgment. And when you hold a judgment for another person as your strategy for maintaining your boundaries, that limits them energetically. And it puts a cover over your heart. It limits your capacity to receive love and your capacity to give love. Your healing from betrayal in its final step includes a forgiveness that doesn't dismiss another's behavior or decide they're not responsible for themselves or not accountable, or that they even get to be back in your life. None of that is true. It's a forgiveness that says, I can see that person was only doing the best they could. And when they did that thing that I'm calling betrayal, they hurt themselves as well as me. And I let them go in love. I send them love and wishes for their healing, even as I have healed myself. I wish healing for them. Your capacity to say a prayer like that from the generosity of your heart is infinitely powerful. Thank you for being with me today. Thank you for your practice. Radiating so much love from my heart to yours.
You can learn more about Mindful Compassionate Dialogue and find free resources, live offerings, and self-paced workshops online at wiseheartcommunity.org. You can also find Wiseheart's new Life Serving Boundaries book, now available on the website.